So since A is positive 1, like we said, it opens up. That means we're looking for a minimum. Okay, we have to figure out that minimum. To figure out the minimum, we got to figure out the vertex. To figure out the vertex, we got to figure out the axis of symmetry first, right? So, axis of symmetry, little equation, negative b over 2a. Right? So what's negative b? 2, right? Because it's a negative 2. So it's a negative of a negative, makes it positive, right, Scott? Over 2 times 1, which is 2. What's 2 divided by 2? 1. Okay? So to find the vertex, I got the x value of the vertex now because it lies on the axis of symmetry, right? So I substitute 1 in for x to find that minimum value. It's not the whole vertex, it's just the y value of the vertex. Okay, so 1 squared is 1, negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, minus 6, that's negative 7. So that's my minimum value. It also asks for domain. So we got to answer this as well. Domain for all of these is what? All real numbers, right? So, and then range is my y values, remember, domain is my x value. Range is from the minimum value up. So y is greater than or equal to negative 7. So I need all of that for you to get all credit, number 1. Question? Equal, right? All right, number 2. It says find the roots by factoring. Before we factor, we have to set it equal to what? 0, right? So right now, it's not set equal to 0. Okay? So do we like our A when we factor to be positive or negative? Positive. So I'm going to leave that 5 on the right and move the other 2 on the left to the other, with it. Okay? So I'm going to subtract the 30x and add the 45. And I'll put my 0 on the left side instead. So it's 5x squared minus 30x plus 45. Okay? Equals 0. Now, that makes sense? Now, what's the first thing I told you to always do if you have to factor? Look for a GCF, right? Does 5 go into all 3 now? Yeah. So take that 5 out. And you get x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay? So it's one of those trinomials, right? Just a regular. Well, it could be one of those special ones, huh? Let's do my 1, 2, 3 test. What's the square root of x squared? Thanks. What's the square root of 9? 3. What's x times 3?
3x.
3x. Is that half of the middle? Yeah, it is, isn't it? So it is one of those special ones, right? But if you didn't see that, you would just get x minus 3 times x minus 3, which is okay. The factors of positive 9 that add up to negative 6 or negative 3 times negative 3, right? I get positive 9. When I add negative 3 plus negative 3, I get the negative 6. So I set my factors equal to 0 here. Can I say 5 equals 0, even though 5 is a factor? Is that a true or false statement? False. If there was an x with that 5, if there was 5x, that was my GCF, my greatest common factor. Then I could set it equal to 0. But there's no x with it, no variable, so all I have to do is set x minus 3 equal to 0. So I'm going to add 3. What?
I don't know. Well, I think GCS is like something like that. But I do that one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, hello.
You said it equals 0, you're backward.
Yeah.
Like I did right here.
Oh,
Remember, if something squared is 0, it's gotta be a 0, right? Nothing else squared is 0 but 0. So just set, once you have it factored, set your factors equal to 0. Now, I don't know if tomorrow's will work out like that. It might be an x minus 3 and an x plus 2 or something like that. You'd have 2 answers. This one only had 1 answer. The majority of the time, there's 2 answers to these quadratics, right? Yeah. Any other questions on number 2? Okay. Number 3, we're going backwards. All right, they said the zeros were positive 6 and negative 8. Right? So the way we start these to go backwards, we want it to look like factors. So we always start x minus. Since there's 2 of them, I have 2x minus. And then I just put those numbers. Drop the 6 in, drop the negative 8. Well, what's minus a negative 8? Plus 8. So I'm going to change that. And then to get back to the function that goes with this, what do? How do I multiply them? FOIL them, right? So the first is x times x. Outside is x times 8. Inside is negative 6 times x. And last is negative 6 times 8. Combine like terms. That's the quadratic function that goes with those 2 zeros. If I were to solve that quadratic equation or quadratic function, I would get 6 and negative 8. So just going backwards. That's an easy problem. Just write x minus in front, and then FOIL. Questions? All right. Number 4. It just says solve. It doesn't tell you what method. Okay. I would love to factor it. So is there a GCF for those 3? You could set it equal to 0 if you wanted, but I'm looking at this first. No GCF, but what do you see? These are both positive what? Perfect squares. So if I do my little 1, 2, 3 test again, the square root of x squared, square root of 25, multiply those 2 together. Is that half the middle? Yeah, so it is one of those special ones. So you can just factor it like this. You take number 1 in the front and number 2 in the back, and whatever's in front of your b. Now, what do you do from there to solve this? Square root, yes. Square root both sides. And what symbol do we have to remember? Plus or minus, yes. And this, break down, don't put it in your calculator. Put it in simplest radical form. So what's the square root of 9? 3. So you can pull that 3 out. To finish up, take the 5 to the other side. So we would add it. So our answer is 5 plus or minus 3 radical 6. There's 2 answers there. That's what we're supposed to have. 2 answers. Okay, number 4 will be very similar to that. It'll be one of these special trinomials, one of those perfect square trinomials. All right, so factor that left side and square root both sides. Simplify. Yes, sir.
After we know this, can we do one that isn't perfect and perfect?
Yeah, we can figure one out. Make one up. Number 5, this this one has no b value. We got an a value of 2 and a c value of 18. Well, there's no x, no b part. Just get the x squared alone. So move the 18 over. And then move the 2 over. We will divide the 2. So you get the squared alone. So number 5 tomorrow is going to be just very similar. Well, this won't have a b value, like the b would be 0. So we're going to square root both sides. So don't forget our plus or minus. And what's the square root of 9? 3, but since it's negative, you got to have the I. All right, the imaginary unit. Okay, remember, square root of -1 equals I, and I squared equals -1. That's something we should know now and remember, because we're going to see some I squared. All right, number 6, it's an easy problem also. Okay, so always make this too hard on yourselves. All right, so we have one complex number equal to another complex number. All right, you got the real part in front, imaginary part in the back, how we're supposed to do it, right? In order for this real or this complex number to equal that complex number, the real parts have to be equal. And then the imaginary part. And you don't have to worry about the y's, you can just drop them. Those have to be equal. In order for those two sides to be equal, those two parts have to be equal. You just solve it. Now to get y by itself, I have to divide by 16. That reduces to 1/2. Not 2. Here I got to divide by -9 to get x alone. The 2 negatives when I divide gives me a positive. So we should get 6 and 1/2. All right? So it's going to be very similar to that. You know, we're going to have one complex number equal to another, just set the real parts equal and the imaginary parts equal. Don't have to put the i's in the problem. Solve for x and y. Number 7, find the zeros. It's the same as finding the roots, right? They ask for the roots in number 2. They're asking for the zeros in number 7. Okay? So what you do is you set it equal to 0, just like the others. Okay? This one doesn't factor. You know, when I look for a GCF, it doesn't have one. Okay? It's got 3 terms, so it's not a difference of squares. All right? There are no factors of 18. A is 1, B is 6, C is 18. There's no factors of, so you could use the quadratic formula if you want on this one, or you can complete the square. All right? I don't care. It doesn't tell you how. You do it either way you want. Okay? Since we have to do number 9 using the quadratic formula, I'm going to do number 7 by completing the square. Just to show you that again, if you like that. When we complete the square, we keep the ax squared and the bx on one side. And we add a blank, and we take the c part to the other, so I got to subtract 18. All right? To fill in the blank, you take half of b, half of 6 is 3, and square it. All right? It's b divided by 2 squared. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So what we did is we made it one of those special trinomials, like we factored a couple of those already. up above. Square root of x squared, that sign, square root of 9. And I add those, I get negative 9. Now it looks like number, what was that, 2? Or 4, like that one, right? I'm right at this point here, right? So I'm gonna take the square root of both sides. So don't forget our plus or minus. On the quiz, that's what you guys would forget a lot, is that plus or minus. The square root of something squares itself, that's why that's x plus 3. And we got negative 9 again, which we already had. That's 3i. So I'm not done because x isn't alone. I gotta take the 3 over, right, coli? So I subtract it. So negative 3 plus or minus 3i is my two answers. Questions on that one? That,
Wait, so you put the I if it's the square root of the negative?
yes, always pull that I out when there's a square root of a negative. Never could do that before we learned that.
And then what was the other one that you said? The other, like I squared?
I squared equals negative 1.
Okay.
All right, number 8, probably the easiest one on the page, except we gotta do what first? Put it in the right order. Is it in the right order right now? No. Remember, we always want the real part in the front, imaginary part in the back. So first of all, put it in the correct order. They're both positive numbers, right? So it's 4 plus 3i. Then all you gotta do for the conjugate is change the sign between them. So that's just 4 minus 3i. Okay? Questions so far? We're going too fast? Coming back to you a little bit, hopefully. Been a long chapter. Number 9, it says use the quadratic formula for this one. So make sure it's in the right order, which it is. Okay, so here's the quadratic formula again. Again, I always use the parentheses, that way you never mess up your signs. You're supposed to know this. Okay, so x equals negative, what's b? Negative 1. Plus or minus, square root. B squared minus 4. A is 4, and C is 5. Over 2 times A. If you put it in like that, with parentheses, that part, don't put the square root in your calculator. That just gives you a decimal answer. We don't want a decimal answer. This negative 1 ends up being positive. 2 times 4 is 8. All right, so the part you put in your calculator is the negative 1 squared minus 4 times 4 times 5. All right, when you do that, you'll get negative 79. You get 1 minus 80. Okay? If I try to do a factor tree for 79, all I get is 1 times 79. No perfect square in there. So the only thing I can pull out of there is what? I didn't hear anybody. I. Thank you. Since it was negative, pull the I out. Okay? So if you want to use the quadratic formula for number 7, you'll get the same answer we got before. Okay, negative 3 plus or minus 3i. Okay, if you don't like completing the square. All right, for number 9, you have to use the quadratic formula. Questions? Okay, number 10, you guys know how to distribute? All right, so 6i times 4 is 24i, and 6i times negative 6i is negative 36i squared. Remember, I squared equals what? Negative 1. So that makes that a positive 36, because it's like negative 36 times negative 1, right? So put it in the right order. Our answer is 36 plus 24i. Questions on that? That's a pretty easy problem too. Okay. You doing okay? Yes, sir?
I have a question. So on 8, when it was the 4 minus 3i, why did we change?
The order?
Yeah.
Because we always like to put it in,
No, because then you like switch what sign it was.
all right, that's called the conjugate. So this is a complex number. A plus bi. We said A, we always say A is the real part and the B is the imaginary part. The part that's with the I is the imaginary part. So I just want that in the back.
Okay. But,
And then to find its conjugate, it would just be, these would be the same. All you do is change the sign in between.
okay.
Okay? So that's all I did here. I mean, I won't mark it wrong if you write 24i plus 36. Okay? You're right. But I just try to tell everybody to keep it in the normal order.
Okay.
Okay? Number 11. All right, so we got an I to a high power. What do we do with that exponent? Divide by 4, right? Here's our 4 possibilities. I to the 0 is 1. I to the first is I. I squared, we've learned, is negative 1. And I cubed is negative I. Those are our 4 possible answers for any of these problems. Then if we got stuff in front, we got to multiply. Like this one, we're going to figure out what this is, and then multiply by negative 8. Okay? I like to use long division. You guys like to use your calculator. So if you get a whole number when you divide, that means it's like I to the 0, because there's no remainder. If you get a remainder of 1, you'll get in your calculator a 0.25, because that's 1/4, because you're dividing by 4. If you get a 0.5 on your calculator, that's like a remainder of 2, which is 2/4. And if you get a 0.75, that's like having a remainder of 3, which is 3/4. Okay? So when you divide 20 by 4, and again, the reason we're dividing by 4 is because there's only 4 possible answers. You guys all know it's 5. 5 times 4 is 20. When I subtract, my remainder is 0, so it's this one. This is the same problem. Negative 8 times I to the 0, which is negative 8 times 1, which is negative 8. So that's the answer to number 11. Number 12, we have a division problem. One complex number divided by another. We're thinking like radicals, because I is the square root of negative 1. It's like having a radical in the bottom, and we're not allowed to have radicals in the bottom. Okay? So we have to rationalize the denominator. The way you do that, you're going to multiply the top and the bottom by the complex conjugate of the bottom. It's okay to have i's in the top, so I don't worry about what's in the top. I want to get rid of the I in the bottom. So its complex conjugate is 5 minus 3i. You just put it over itself, because anything over itself is 1, and anything times 1 is itself. So it's going to look different, but basically all we're doing is multiplying by 1. So we FOIL. So the top first is negative 10. Outside is a positive 6i, negative 2 times a negative 3. Inside is a positive 10i. And last is a negative 6i squared. I'm going to remember that's like negative 6 times negative 1. So I'm going to make it plus 6. On the bottom, there's a shortcut, but I'll do the FOIL. And I'll remind you the shortcut. First is 25. Outside, 5 times negative 3i. Inside, 3i times 5 is positive. And last is negative 9i squared. So I'm going to remember that's like negative 9 times negative 1 again, which is positive 9. Those are opposites, so they'll cancel. So it's always going to be the first term squared, the second term squared. 5 squared, 25, 3 squared, 9, and add. That's what we got here, 25 and 9. Okay? It's always going to work that way. So if you want to do the shortcut, save yourself some time, you can. Come on. Go up there. All right. So my top, the numerator, is negative 10 plus 6, negative 4. 6 plus 10, 16 for like terms. And 25 plus 9 is 34. Is that finished? No. Those all are even. Therefore, I can divide each one by 2. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. 16i divided by 2 is an 8i. And 34 divided by 2 is 17. That's what this simplifies to. Mistake I usually get, if there is a mistake, is you guys put a plus there. You make it exactly the same. Remember? They're opposite sign in between. Okay? The conjugates. 13, we're getting there. 3 plus 2i squared, or 3 minus 2i squared. Okay? When you square something, it means to multiply by itself. So I just FOIL. First, 9. Outside, negative 6i. Inside, negative 6i. Last, positive 4i squared. That makes that a negative this time. Positive 4 times negative 1 is a negative 4. Combine like terms. 9 and the negative 4 is a positive 5. Negative 6 and a negative 6, negative 12. Simple. Don't mess that up. You guys know how to do that. If you've been paying attention, this isn't that bad. All right, it's kind of long. You're going to have to be ready. Okay? So, you're given this function, and you got to answer a bunch of questions. All right? The first question. I'll just go A, B, C. Up or down? Up, right? You got a picture of it going up. You can write the word up. Or write opens up, however you want. But that's one answer. Next was, oh, it said by completing the square, huh? Does it say that to you guys? Write the function in vertex form by completing the square? No, it just says consider it, right? All right. That's what I used to make you do. I just let you do this one. It's a little bit easier. All right, axis of symmetry. Remember, is x equals negative b over 2a. Negative b is actually positive 12 over 2 times 3. Okay. Do you need to put 2 times 3 in your calculator? No, don't do it. Here's what you guys will do. And you get the wrong answer. What's the answer going to be? 2. You guys all with me on that, right? You guys know 12 divided by 6 is 2, right? Here's what you'll do in the calculator. You'll go negative 12 divided by 2 times 3. That's how you put it in. Is that the right answer, 18? No. The calculator is following order of operations. Okay? So it thinks it wants you to do 12 divided by 2, which is 6, then times 3, which is 18. Okay? But that's not really what's going on here. You need to add that extra if you're going to use the calculator. Again, I don't see the reason for using a calculator. You should know that 2 times 3 is 6. You just know that 12 divided by 6 is 2. That's just me. All right? So, this axis of symmetry is x equals 2. It's an equation. All right? So, there's 2 answers. The third answer is the vertex. You already got the x value of the vertex. To find the y value, you plug in, like we did on that first problem, to find min or maximum value. This would be a minimum value, right? Because it opened up. All right? Another mistake you guys make. You guys, okay, I know 3 times 2 is 6, so I'm going to go 6 squared is 36. Wrong. You did multiplication before exponents. You're supposed to go 2 squared first. 4 times 3, 12. 12 times 2, negative 24, which is a negative 12. Minus 6 is a negative 18. All right? So there's your vertex. All right? The easiest part of this, number 4, or D, is the y-intercept. It's always 0 something. And it's your C value. What's our C value? Negative 6. Yes. Left in, huh? The straight?
There.
All straight still? Good. Good. All right, and then the last part, graph it. All right, a lot of you forget to do that part. All right, this be like a 10-point problem. There's 5 answers. I'll make them 2 points apiece. All right, so I'm just going to say down here is negative 18. All right, so 2 negative 18 is my vertex, right? Isn't that what we figured out? My axis of symmetry is supposed to be a straight line through there. What was my y-intercept? We just said 0, negative 6, right? Okay, so that, let's just say that's negative 6. Where's that third point? Yeah, just go 2. I go 2 this way, 2 left to get that. I go 2 right here. All right, so that's 0, negative 6. What's this? 4, negative 6. And there's my parabola. Okay? Simple. Lots to do, though. So my suggestion to you is to do it again tonight, to practice. I don't think we have time for what you asked me.
What?
You asked me to do a different one that it wasn't a
Yeah, well, that wasn't.
perfect square, but it will be. Because we're going to have to take the square root of both sides. Any other questions? Kennedy, you getting that, what you needed to do on that phone so quickly? You missed the half hour of what's going on in the world?
Grant's on his phone too, it's not just me.
Well, so's Olivia and then half the other people, and Alex is probably playing this game already. Right, so, not that important, people. Alright, what's important is we're gonna do well tomorrow. Last test of the year. Maybe not. Test, I guess it is. We got an exam, we call an exam a test? Yeah, I guess we do.
How are you filming this year? Like, how are
Your math exam will be Thursday and Friday next week, during this period. During this period. 2 days. Oh, like 30 something. 33 maybe? I haven't looked. I don't know, 150 maybe? Why not? Or 33 points, right or wrong, right?